important because if we don't tell our stories, other people will. And before, we've had these conversations of how African stories have been used in Western culture to create their own ideas and ideologies as to what things are based off of. So I'll give you an example of Thor is based off of Shango. So things like that is why we need to start to recreate our stories and have them be told and share it with our people and leave a legacy, leave that mark for us so no one else is telling that story and using it for themselves.
This story, the story of Agbanuji, who was a king of Uromi, we don't know much about it, even though I'm from Uromi. I can't just pick up a book and read about him. But among Uromi people, there are a lot of educated people, including professors, doctors, people that are highly educated who could really sit down and write this story. Because if you don't write this story, some other person is going to come out from somewhere and pick this. I repeat again, the man is regarded in history as a god of war.
No matter how fearless you think the lion is, let the hunter write the story, and you see that the lion is a stupid animal. You even think the lion is not as powerful as an ant, just because the pen is in the hand of the wrong person. And that's the way it is. We have been continually disenfranchised. We have continually been disempowered. We have continually been, endangered because we have allowed them to write our story. That's unfair.
Hello and thank you for checking out this video. I'm Obehi Ewanfoh, the host of the African Diaspora Storytelling Series. Every 2 weeks we meet up on LinkedIn to talk about different ways we can leverage the power of storytelling as people of African descent. I encourage you to join us at the next event if this is your first time of hearing about the African Diaspora Storytelling Series on LinkedIn. I help entrepreneurs and professionals, mostly within the African diaspora, to own their story so they can attract the right audience and drive success. I am the author of the Storytelling Mastery, a 5-part book series that takes you by the hands through the ABC of storytelling. If you find that interesting, you can claim the first chapter for free at aclasses.org/free chapter. The power of storytelling is something we are truly passionate about, and there is a strong reason behind that. We are uniting the millions of Africans in the diaspora through our stories. If that sounds like what you are interested in, make sure to subscribe to this channel and share the video with your friends who might need it. Now, back to today's conversation. Sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what are we going to leave behind? Because we should understand that we are not here forever. We do not live forever. The way that we were designed as entity, as human beings, we do not live forever. So it is important, therefore, that before we leave this little space where we are experiencing life, we should be able to leave something behind for others who are going to be here. So that's essentially what the legacy is about, in that when you turn your back, when you are no longer there, what is going to be remembered of you? What is your legacy? What is your influence? How are you influencing the people that you are living with right now and those that are going to be here after you have gone? And that is important for us also because we are always part of a story. And if we look at the story that we are in, we always look at those who have been here before us. We are what we are today based on what they have done. We are not where we are just because of our effort. If it was because of our effort, we would not be able to speak, we would not be able to eat, we would not be able to walk in the sense of being able to travel from Atlanta to Washington, to move from London to Newcastle, or to even know what to eat. We will probably die. You see, I was saying in one of my books, in the book series, the storytelling series, that storytelling is also about our survival, in that our ancestors have to do a lot of experiments to know what is even food. Because it is not written anywhere. Nature do not have a book where it is written, this is what you should eat to live, this is what you should eat to die. Because as far as nature is concerned, dying and living is part of the equation. So whether you die or live, nature do not lose. But for us, we want to live. So we need to play the game in a way that we can live. Because if you look at the game of life again, maybe for example, you are in the savannah, you see maybe an animal that is just walking by, going to take water. Then just by another animal is standing there, maybe a lion that is also trying to eat, because the antelope want to eat to survive, but the lion also want to eat to survive. Now, if we were to bring out a philosophy or maybe a culture, maybe a way of life, maybe whatever you want to call it, if you are from the family of antelope, you will like to say, hey, antelope, please be careful. There is an enemy here that is coming to eat you. You see, that is how you will do, because you are talking from your point of view. But what if you were from the family of lion? You would never do that, because if you know that if you do that, the lion is going to die of hunger. Because that is the way it is. So nature is neutral. It is up to us to be able to register our existence and make sure that we leave a good memory behind for other people. Well, I'm not going to speak too much about myself here. I just want to throw in there that this Life and Legacy series, or we are talking about today, and this book series is coming from a research that I did about the presence of Africans in Italy, in northern part of Italy. I tried to put their story together, try to understand where are we coming from? Why are we here? Why are we not in Africa? Because many of us are from Africa, but we are here in Italy, in Europe. I remember, for example, many of the people that I came in contact with, I never met them before. I never even knew about their culture, even though I am from Africa. I never went to Congo. I didn't live in Ivory Coast, even though it's nearby to Nigeria. But when we begin to look at this different culture here, where I am in a small city of Verona, less than 300,000 people, it will become almost like a small family here. Therefore, it is important for us to talk about ourselves, our culture, and to learn about our diversity in the equation of life. So that is where it actually started. Until recently, I say, well, what I've learned is important to put it together. Maybe some other person might also learn from it and then pass on the baton. That is actually why we are here. So, of course, today, like I said, we're going to be looking at building African life, building life and legacy in the diaspora using storytelling. And I'm honored to have uh, already 4 people in the room who are going to be sharing with me, who are going to be, of course, sharing their experiences as how it relates to what we are talking about today. Then I will start with, usually would be ladies and gentlemen. So let's start with Dr. Matsia. Would you like to say something about yourself, then and your take on what we have today as conversation? Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good night, good evening. It depends on where you are listening from. I want to thank you so much for taking the time when we host these posts and these things, these audio lives, to join us. I am Dr. Marcia Thomas, and I am a part of this venture because I write stories for students. I have them share their stories so that they are able to look at their stories, become more self aware, more self reflective, and more self accepting of their life and how they can change his life, their lives, so they become critical thinkers and problem solvers and interface with their situation on a personal and on a community and on a family level. I also tell stories of leaders, or allow leaders to tell their stories of overcoming and harness their superpower to endure and to continue to win, especially during challenging times on their leadership journey, personally and professionally. I took up this mandate of leading top Christian leaders and coaching them and mentoring them through these times because of my experience and my story as a Christian leader, a top career professional in my industry. I find that building your life and your legacy with storytelling, regardless of where you are in the world, is very crucial to overcoming challenges, setbacks, and for self discovery and resilience. I believe that we must continue to engage in how we can build life and legacy with storytelling, so we are able to change our perceptions of life and change people's public and private perceptions that would permeate certain types of inequality and discrimination. It also helps us to collaborate with resilience and commit to celebrating ourselves, our heritage, our small wins, our large wins, our impact and our influence on each other as we engage in supporting ourselves, our experiences, validating them, and building and leaving that legacy for life.
Thank you so much for that. That is why we're here. It's about the legacy. It's about what we leave behind. It's about what other people are going to think about us and how they are going to carry out the story of the human journey, or our session of the human journey as African in the diaspora, of Africans in general. All right, Nakasha, it's your turn. Please share with us. Tell the people who you are and what is your take on today's conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nakaja, and I am an author myself of Play the Game Hierarchical Assimilation, that goes through talking about my story from an African woman's perspective, but also with an Afrocentric approach to it, which is really important. I've also written children's books as well, because I believe that it's really important for us to write stories for our children. Otherwise, the stories that are being told in school, because I am a preschool teacher as well, don't always represent our children all the way. And so storytelling is really important, because if we don't tell our stories, other people will. And before, we've had these conversations of how African stories have been used in Western culture to create their own ideas and ideologies as to what things are based off of. So I'll give you an example of Thor. It's based off of Shango. So things like that is why we need to start to um, recreate our stories and have them be told and share it with our people, and leave a legacy, leave that mark for us, so no one else is telling that story and using it for themselves. Also, something else I was reading recently is, I don't know if anyone likes Star Wars. I've never seen it, but a lot of those Star Wars stories are actually inputted a lot of African cultures or traditions, and they make a mockery out of them. So that's why it's really important for us to tell our own stories through books, through videos, films, whatever the case may be. But it's super important. And I also believe that everyone has a story to share, everyone has a story to learn from. So, yeah, I'm excited to hear from everyone. And I'm glad that there's some people listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Nakasha. You touched some important point there too, talking about how maybe the relics of our culture, or maybe the part of our culture, could actually already there in the mainstream, only that it is being played out by other people. I think Olatuji was saying something similar to that in the past, that sometimes we allow other people to come and take advantage of our culture, whether you're looking at the Yoruba culture, the Hausa culture, or the Igbo culture, or many other cultures in Africa, because inside this culture, there are elements from spirituality to economy to politics that are key players. There are people that have invented things that sort of become important in the way our life is today. But sometimes we get this culture back to us. Somebody come and record it and then repropose it back to us after they have whitewashed it. So we don't even see ourselves in it. And this is not good enough for us if we are trying to present ourselves, if we are going to sell ourselves in the world, because it is very important that we understand the different element of our culture. Let me just point out a few things. In this Life and Legacy series, for example, I'm coming from Assam. So among the Assam people of Nigeria, which is in Edo State, south of Nigeria, there is a man we refer to as a god of war. The name of the man is a king, actually, is a king of Assam people. His name is Agbanoji. Now, why he's called the god of war is that he was a very ferocious warrior. He took on the Benin Empire. Of course, you know that Esan is part of the Benin Empire, but these are people that have sort of extracted themselves from the Benin because of a series of things that have happened. So at a point, the Esan people had a fight with the Benin people. So what I'm trying to point out here is that this story, the story of Agbanoje, who was a king of Uromi, we don't know much about it, even though I'm from Uromi. I can't just pick up a book and read about him. But among Uromi people, there are a lot of educated people, including professors, doctors, people that are highly educated who could really sit down and write this story. Because if you don't write this story, some other person is going to come out from somewhere and pick this. I repeat again, the man is regarded in history as a god of war. But that is already very important. Somebody need to explain that to the people. Otherwise, in our houses, we will have copy of the Bible, copy of the Qurans, but we will never have copy of our history. And we think it is normal. It is not normal. So storytelling is vital for us. We must tell our story. We must explain our version of reality in the world. This is absolutely important. So in this Life and Legacy series, we are into those kind of story. We are interviewing different people and putting those stories together. We want to make sure that books comes out from there. We want to make sure that courses come out from there. We want to make sure that articles come out from there where we put a kind of fresh air into this story. So we're really here intentionally trying to see how we can re-evaluate this huge story that we have among us. Take, for example, of the no culture, Central Nigeria, dating back to about 3,000 years old. Who is going to talk about this story? Who is going to tell this story? Because, of course, the European can also come to help us to tell our story, but that is a shame. Because we live in Africa, we live in Nigeria. Because, okay, I'm talking of the North culture, it's in Central Nigeria, so I'm making reference to Nigeria. But of course, the same can also happen if you were in Zimbabwe, or if maybe you are from Congo, or you are in Senegal, or in another part of Africa. Our continent is littered with abundance of history, very deep history. 3,000 years old history is not something that you can just scrap about. This is something important. It is our history. We need to tell this history. We need to understand these people after they have gone. What can we read about them so that we can better straighten up our life? So this is why we are also here, to sort of provoke ourselves, to sort of encourage ourselves, to sort of push ourselves. Perhaps I'm not the one to write this book. Maybe somebody who is better than me is going to write it. Maybe my role is just to provoke that individual who know better than me, then he will go out and do the writing. So I pass the mic to Olatuji, then of course I'll pass to Eric. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. We are looking forward to hearing from you. But first, Olatuji.
All right, it's good to be here. I want to appreciate everybody who has joined us today. We do not take for granted the opportunity to have us join us today again on this very important topic. Mr. Obehi was getting very emotional, and I understand it's a very interesting thing to come by when we begin to talk about our roots. I am, physically the person you see here, and that's where I am. I tell stories. All right, I tell stories and I write, solutions in forms of stories. I make them memorable. I make them, not forgettable and practical enough for people and businesses. So, typically, there's nothing that sells that is not a story. And that's basic. Looking at building African diaspora life and legacy with storytelling is something very important. I remember there was a time, I don't know how many of us have seen Thor. Forgotten the slogan now. There's a movie now. Thor, is it Thor and Thunder, Thor or something like that, the first leg of it, they came out, they gave Thor a hammer. But somebody told them that if you want to represent a story well, if you want to represent a story, then you should do it well. Because the story they were trying to tell was the story of the god of thunder in Africa. All right. He was not known with hammer. He was known with axe. And in their second outing, they came out with axe. All right. For Thor. And where did that come from? When you allow your story to be told by who was not part of it. I remember that day, when we were talking about how Mungo Park does not have the right to be the one, with the title of the discoverer of Niger, River Niger. River Niger was there before they gave birth to his father. All right. I do not mean any disrespect, but I'm just saying that when you refuse to allow your story to be written by you, anybody that will write it the way they like. All right. There's an adage in my language, Yoruba language, that when you give a madman the O, some of us have not seen O before. When you give a madman the O to make rich, he would make it under his legs. All right. So when anybody is opportune to write a story, they would write it to their favor. The hunter and the lion. No matter how fearless you think the lion is, let the hunter write the story. And you see that the lion is a stupid animal. You even think the lion is not as powerful as an ant just because the pen is in the hand of the wrong person. And that's the way it is. We have been continually disenfranchised. We have continually been disempowered. We have continually been, endangered because we have allowed them to write our story. That's unfair. It's not good. So, and if we do not cause the interruption now, like we are having it now, it will continue like that. All right. Stories are, you look at a story, don't mind me. I usually would not shy away from that gift of words and opening them up, using them very well so that you cannot forget. Look at stories. Are you seeing story now? STROY. STORY, right? Then look at history. History is HI, then you put story. When stories are well told, they become history. And you see history is everything that has happened before now, and they are solely responsible for what we do now. Why we are behaving the way we are behaving now as Africans in diaspora and at home, wherever, is because of the history handed over to us now. When you see the history books about Africa, the best copy of them are written by people who are non-African. And you expect that we will not behave the way we are behaving today? Come on. It's not possible. So if we want to behave from the place of power and strength, we must hand over this legacy properly. All right. And Mr. Obehi will say, you can take out a strong man. You cannot take out a strong people. Look at it. It's our responsibility. We are here to trouble the waters. I intentionally want you to be angry about this situation, and that's why I've chosen certain words. Sorry if I apologize at any point in time. I wanted you to be angry because you have to be angry. If we are not angry with this matter, we are going to hand over another operating system that will cause limitation to the future generation, that will make them feel not enough because they told us the story. All right. The story is making it in the movies, right? Thor or whatever it is. But it's a story they picked from here. And it's not their fault that they don't represent it well because it's not originally theirs. I'm sorry, they don't have story. We have all the stories in this world, and we are the best storytellers in this world. But they learn from us, they take advantage of us because we have decided to remain lions that will not go to school to learn how to write stories. Don't let me get you too annoyed or too angered at this point because we are still going a long way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alatuji. I like one line that you said there, that you intentionally wanted to be angry. And I think that is the way it should be. Because when you are angry, when you come to accept the reality is that this story is going to be told by you and you alone. Nobody else is coming. I look far ahead of us. Nobody else is coming. We are going to do this work or it will never be done. If we want it to be done, you must dust out yourself. You must enter the rain when it's raining. When the sun is shining, you must be there digging. You see, I want to really point out one thing before I pass the mic to Eric. A couple of times, I've interviewed some history lecturer professors relating to Egyptologists. At the point, I've sort of asked, Why do you think, sincerely speaking, why do you think that the European coming to write African story will put yourself in the story? Anyway, let us say African story, writing the word history. They will put you, African, in their story. Why? For what reason? Because history often is written by the one who wins in the battle. If I win you in the battle, why would I put you in it? To show that I'm stupid? I don't need to put you. If I decide to put you, I will put you the way I want to put you. I choose the role I want to give you. This is something very subtle, but I just want to point it out. A couple of time ago, I was trying to do analysis, looking at pictures, just pictures. I don't know, you can do it yourself. Just go to Google, for example, and type Africa, then search by picture. You will see what you will see. But this is not really the fault of Google sometimes, even though it can be part of it. The fault is that, or the question, the point really is that we are not putting enough information to trouble the water, like Olatujen is saying. We are comfortable thinking that somebody is going to write the history for us and will just include us. But no, you can't do that. They cannot include you the way you want to be included. They will include you as a subordinate. They will include you as one who is just cleaning the table. You watch a lot of Hollywood film. You don't need to be told about that. Or the Nigerians came up with their version of cinema, which is Hollywood. It was believed that in Africa, the only role that we can play sometime is to come and play the Blood Diamond sometime, and the all sort of the film that were done by the Hollywood about AIDS in Africa, the Malawi, the South African, and all that. But the Nigerians came out and said, no, we can tell our story. I remember, for example, one time, I was participating with a film festival in my city in Verona. So I happened to invite Jetta Ramata. Of course, many of you will know Jetta Ramata if you watch Nollywood film. So in the course of the conversation in the evening, Jetta Ramata was saying something that when he went to France to present one of his films, some French were telling him, but this is not Africa. They literally told him, this is not Africa. And I want to imagine that you understand what they mean by this is not Africa. Because Nollywood, as it was coming up, was presenting picture of people who also have problem. Remember, who also have problem, but with a lot of dignity. Riding their own car, living also in mansion, beautiful mansions. So to the French people, this is not Africa. You should show Africa with a man that is half naked, with children with a lot of fly on their mouth. That is Africa for them. Because you want to look at Africa, that people that are suffering. This again is who is telling the story. Who is telling the story? So we cannot give this privilege out, some other person to tell the story for us. We cannot do that. We need to do the storytelling, do the digging. And we also need, that is a good news for you. You can also make money telling story. Do you remember that? You can make money telling story. Anyway, I'll leave that for now. I'll come back to that later. My brother Eric, thank you for joining us. Please, what is your take? And please remember to tell people also what you do, because we are here also to say ourselves.
Thank you, my brother. That's a great segue to me. Appreciate you, Obehi. Thank you for having me as a guest on your podcast. I really appreciate it. My name is Eric F. King. Good to meet you, everybody. Good to meet everybody all over the world. And I help entrepreneurs triple their sales and boost their income without being salesy or pushy. One of the reasons I jumped on this call is because I heard the word storytelling. And like you said, storytelling can make you a lot of money. I literally make you a lot of money. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I lived in Canada when I was a kid, with my family, with my parents. And then I moved to Nigeria. I'm from Nigeria. I moved there for my high school education, learned a lot about the culture and everything, and then moved to America. So I live in the Washington, D.C. area now. And knowing my background and my culture gives me confidence in what I do. All right. So, and it's the stories I've heard, the stories my dad has told me, the stories my grandfather told me, right? Stories are powerful. Stories are inspirational, right? They inspire people to take action, right? Stories are relatable. When people hear your story, they're like, oh, you know what? Like in sales, for instance, you give people stories about other clients you've had in the past. And they say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And then most importantly, stories are indisputable. Indisputable. You can't argue with a story, right? So the fact that I've lived around the world, when I meet people and they say things about Africa that's not true, I'm able to dispute that with a story. And they're like, wow, I didn't know, right? So stories are powerful. So last thing I'm going to share with you real quick is this is this. There was a story told of a young man in Africa, I don't know what country it was, that he wanted to be rich. He wanted to be rich, and he found out that the fastest way to become rich is to mine for diamonds and sell diamonds. So he started doing that. He started digging. He went across the street, started digging for diamonds. He couldn't find any. Okay. Then he went down to the town, started digging for diamonds. He couldn't find any. Then he hired a crew of people, went to the city to dig for diamonds, but he couldn't find any diamonds. Then they decided, you know what, let's go to another country. They went to another country, digging and digging, never found any diamonds. 20 years goes by, 30 years goes by. Now he is old and he is frail. And one day, unfortunately, a train comes by and hits him, and he passes away. A month after he passed away, the gentleman that bought his land, that bought his house, was sitting in his backyard, and he sees something shining in the stream. And he picks it up and finds out that this is a diamond. And they start digging in the backyard, and he finds diamonds. And they dig and dig and dig and find more diamonds. They end up finding acres and acres of diamonds. The guy that brought the property became rich. The guy that died never looked in his backyard. The moral of the story is we all have what it takes to be successful. We were born with it. It's God-given, right? You don't have to go elsewhere to get it, right? You don't have to go get a job from someone that's going to give you money. We have it in us to be entrepreneurs, to build a legacy for ourselves and our families. And one last thing I'll leave you with today, because I'm known for telling you what you need to hear and not just what you want to hear. If you are not fulfilling your potential, if you have a gift, a zone of genius, you have something you can provide to the world, and you are not selling it, you are not putting it out there, you are depriving people of the blessing that they can receive from it. And you are depriving the people that count on you for the money you can generate from it. Your children, your spouse, maybe you need to retire your parents, right? So you are depriving them of the life they can live because you are not being all you can be. So I encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, to go out there and crush it. And if you're not, to become an entrepreneur and have something for yourself that you can put your name on, because all of you here come from greatness, and you can achieve all that you want if you put your mind to it and you believe in yourself. With that said, I will give it back to you, Obehi. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Let's connect. Let's share our stories and continue to rise together. Make it a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Eric. Thank you so much for that. I remember that story, The Acres of Diamond. That is a beautiful story. That story is actually at the center of what we're talking about here. Eric, thank you for that connection. That is powerful, no? It is true in very many ways. One, that we have story powerful, but we never leverage it because perhaps we do not know that our story is valuable. Now, that is something that we are trying to push as we are living in an economy that is known as the knowledge economy. Economy that what we are selling today is actually not mostly physical product. Of course, we still sell physical product, but we are selling information product. Now, if that is the case, what information do you have that can be useful to other people? Okay, let me put it this way. What if somewhere in a village, I grew up in a village in Africa, which I'm really very proud of, because that helped me to be able to speak from the point of standing on the ground. I'm not standing in the air. I know whom I am. I really do know whom I am when I'm talking, because I will be able to give you instances using my cultural relevance. This is important. So what if, for example, I could talk about my culture. Do you know that nobody has written a book about my village? What if I could do that? Can somebody read it? What if I could create a course explaining New Yam Festival, for example, in my culture, which is Asan? Would that be relevant? Why I think that is important is that, like Eric have said, sometimes we are just there trying to mimic other people. We are just trying to copy other people, try to be the next bestseller, try to be like another person. Hey, that is a bad news. Every other person is taken. The only one that is left is you. If you refuse to claim yourself, you will become nobody. Because the best you can be of a copy of another person is fake, which is a best fake. Whereas you are original. You can become the best of you, which is the original who you are. Which of course you can continue to work on, like the diamond. Continue to refine yourself little by little, little by little, until you can shine. But you cannot shine as another person. It means you will be shining as a fine fake. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So there are stories around us. Are you in the diaspora? There are stories around. Are you in Africa? There are stories around that we can leverage. So that is why probably we need among us those who know how to package. Because now we need to package the information and send it to someone else. There is a lot of money to be made. Trillions of dollars is what the e-learning industry is booming into. Are we ready to also take our share from that? Taking our share from that doesn't necessarily mean now we need to be repeating only what is happening in the Goldman Sachs, or maybe what the CNN have said, or what the BBC have said. No. If you are somewhere in Jamaica, somebody wants to rediscover Jamaica again through your eyes, through your perspective. We are over 8 billion people in the world. I know that. But this is another thing to also remember. Each of us is unique. Each of us is individual. Each of us exists. Each of us has the possibility of shining, remolding the same story, but this time through our perspective. History, they said, is two words, his and story. If you break it into two, you mean his story. If you reframe it, it can be story from his perspective. Yes, again, from her perspective too. Which means that you have the right to rewrite the way you see Roma, for example, the way you see technology, for example, the way you see employment, for example, the way you see job, for example, the way you see food, the way you see biology. You have the right to do that because you are a human being.
Okay, yes, it's Babakar Banda. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Hello, everyone. Again, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear, my brother. Go on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, great. I'm from Senegal, West Africa, kind of living in Morocco. I love traveling. I love this topic because that's why I just jumped into it, building African diaspora life and legacy with storytelling. What I want to highlight is we need to preserve our cultural heritage. It's so crucial because it connects us to our roots, traditions, and history. So even if you travel abroad or if you move out of country, you need to preserve that your roots, your traditions and history. For example, I myself, English is not my first language. My first language is Wolof. So if I don't pass down this language to my son and my kids, it's like I do a kind of a rupture, and it's not good because if my brother or my sister or my kids don't only speak like French or Wolof and they don't speak my native language that is not English or French but is Wolof, so it's my own duty to do the job. It's our role to do it because there are some things I can't explain in English. No, I can't explain it in French. Even in French, no. I only explain it to my kids in Wolof because this is my culture. We live in a country where we have different cultures. And people should. So it's the role of the mom, it's the role of the dad to pass down your roots, your traditions, your history, your language. Plus, it allows the future generations to learn from the past and continue our rich cultural legacy. Okay. Now what I'm gonna highlight, the second things I want to highlight is about the griots. I don't know if you guys know these people. These are people. The griots they live in West Africa most of the time, like Mali or Senegal. Okay, countries in West Africa. And those griots, their roles is like they are storytellers and musicians, and they pass down history, legends, and cultural knowledge through words and music. It's a kind of music. They only like instruments and their voice, like they're storytellers, and like they are great storytellers, and they know the history of African people. Most of the time, they know the history of your family, and through ceremonies or festivities, they come here and then they tell you your real story. And it's so important now to, how can I say, to not, okay, not how can I say, to like stop continuing this kind of legacy. It's a legacy for us African people. For those people who know, the griots, they play a vital role in Africa history. Um, what I can add also is like, if we like, don't give the privilege. Point number three, don't give the privilege to others to knowledge your own history because they don't really understand your history. Some people, they come in your country, just try to give you, just try to show you that this is your history. But most of the time, when I do some research, what I found is that most of the time, those things we read on books are not true. Totally false most of the time. And it's the duty of the parent to verify the story and then to tell the truth to their kids. So important. I must have to do a lot of. I want to show you, for example, if I can take a character that I love, Chimamanda. I don't know, he's from Nigeria. Um, okay, Nigerian author. Okay, he's the author of Americana, or like Half of a Yellow Sun. You know, if you Google it, you can find those books. Some interesting books, okay, to read. But I love this also because, okay, she knows that she comes from Nigeria, even if she's teaching at some university in the United States. But she tried to narrate, she tried to how can I say, to not forget his story. So important. Like if I can highlight like I want to show you some parts of Americana. I think is because I have the time to read that book, and that book was like is a kind of a novel, okay, that explores a themes and identity. So important, because if you don't know who you really are, you can't even impact the world. The first thing is to know who you are. If you know who you are, it's way easy to impact the world. Not only your community, you can first impact your community, but the goal is not just impact your community, but impact the world. And it is possible. So I love the book because with Americana, you can Google it. Okay, it's by Chimamanda Adichie. It's a compelling novel that explores his story, okay, identity, race, and love through the experience of a young Nigerian woman in America. Thank you. It was I love. Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity again. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Obi,
Yeah. Please go.
I just want to join in here because he made a that I wanted to raise because I think it's preserving the culture and the heritage, and that is the language barrier. A lot of children whose parents have migrated, Africans whose parents have migrated or no longer live in their global space of their homeland, their children do not know the language because there is a saying that says the higher the monkey climb, the more he expose. And I find that a lot of
Oh, thank you. I was actually just going to translate what she meant because I'm in Jamaica as well. And I just wanted to translate that because it wasn't my time to speak, but I wanted to translate because she's gone. The higher the monkey climb, the more him exposed. That's our local vernacular. It's patois. It's a Jamaican language that came out of slavery. So it's a bit of Creole and French and whatever else. And what it really means is the higher you go, the higher you go and the more you achieve, the more you get exposed. And that's what it really means. I just wanted to translate that. But since it's my time to speak, until Dr. Marcia comes back. Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Ava Eagle Brown. I'm sitting in my beautiful country, Jamaica. As you can tell, I have a British accent, I think. So I'm British Jamaican. And I wanted to, Obi is my business partner. We're working on some amazing stuff behind the scenes. I was married to a Nigerian, so I really understand cross-cultural diversity, having lived and taught in England for many years, but also having traveled the world and spoken in 23 countries. I'm very cognizant of the importance of sharing stories across the diaspora, especially for us of people of color. I remember standing in Poland, uh, sharing my story, The Mango Girl. If you haven't read my book, you have to get my book. It's a very powerful chronicling and capturing of a woman's story of perseverance and survival. But what struck me about that speech, which was about 20,000 people, it was that I was stood in an audience sharing my story. My dogs are back in the garden is coming, sharing my story to persons who English was not their first language. And the reason I'm sharing this particularly right now is that the persons were stood there and they were sat there actually. I was in Krakow in Poland, and they were listening to me sharing my story of my little village in Jamaica, how I grew up selling mangoes on the train, how I struggled, the regular story of hardship. And these people did not speak English at all. It wasn't their first language. However, there was connectivity, there was understanding, and there was somehow commonality in our stories. And I'm saying this to say that very often, or so often, we question, especially I know I do. So let me talk about myself as a Black girl who failed English in high school and who has a speech impediment. Very often and so often for many years, I questioned whether I was good enough for the Caucasian man to listen to my story, because it's been embedded in some of us to believe that our stories are just for our culture and that nobody outside of the Black and brown people would really be interested in our stories. And it took me a long time, even whilst living in England, teaching Caucasian, Indian, Asian rather, and African children and Black children, brown and Black children. I struggled with thinking that I had relevance. And when the moment I found my voice, I shared it yesterday actually. It was when I was featured in the Financial Times, which is the almost like the New York Times, and they shared my story, and I was conflicted and I was confused as to how did these people find my story interesting, my voice interesting, my little story about my little struggle interesting, and I felt inferior and uncomfortable sharing it. And the moment I discovered that actually there are people there who are willing to listen to my story that is colorful, a very colorful story, like my character, I recognized something, that there is a space for all of our stories. And so this topic could not come at a more relevant time as this, because as people, we need to step out and understand that our stories are unique to us, but there are an audience there for it. And Eric said something that I really not, yeah, Eric said something, haven't spoken to you in a while, Eric, but I see you trailblazing and loving it. Eric said something that is so true. If we are not packaging, and I'm paraphrasing, our stories, and if we are not selling the aspects, and we like to use the word sell is in a very, some of us think selling is uncomfortable and derogatory. It's a very dignified conversation. Your gifts will make room for you. I spoke at Jump in Atlanta at Steve Harvey invited me 2017. And when I was at Jump, I remember sitting there ready to speak. And Steve Harvey said, like the Bible says, your gifts will make room for you. Your story is a gift. And you have to hone that gift. And you have to understand that sometimes you have to find those who are able to help you pull it out of your gut and help you articulate it in a way that your audience can access it. Now, when I was in Poland speaking on stage, I had never spoken with an interpreter before. However, because it is my story, it is unique to me, the interpreter was able to understand and then translate to somebody else. So when you tell your story, there are persons there who will pick up pieces of it that they know, feel, touch, and are inspired by, and they will be like ants. They will carry it over the world for you. So as Africans, and I consider myself an African woman, as an African woman who's got British Jamaican heritage as my second heritage, because I'm African first, I want to encourage everybody here this morning to understand that your story can change your life. And I'm going to speak about it from a monetary perspective because sometimes we fluff it. And for those who know me, you know I keep it real. Everything you see me do right now, it's because I sold my story, The Mango Girl. I'm unapologetic about it because my story has made room for me. I built a house out of it. I sent my children to school out of it. I buy my car out of it. I don't have any debt, you all. I don't own a credit card. And I must be weird. I don't own a credit card. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with it. I don't have a car payment. I'm not old. And I'm a single woman, slaying my stuff, doing my thing in the world because I told my story. I have some great partnerships because of my story. Now, hear me when I say this to you. If you have a story to tell, you need to find those who can help you tell it. If you have a story to sell, you need to find those who can sell it for you. If you have a story and you're not confident about getting it out of your gut, then find those who are able. Because here's the thing, sometimes being articulate is not everybody's gift. We all come to the world with different gifts and talents. And when we understand where our strength lies and we maximize that and we're able to hone that, the world becomes your oyster. This girl who's talking to you right now was just asked. Let me say there's a Jamaican in the room apart from Marcia. Marcia's here, so I'm not going to say it. This girl who is the girl who did not speak English, who spoke my local vernacular for many years. I failed English in high school and I started feeling bad. Like the reason I failed was because I didn't speak English. And now I can speak patois because I don't play with because we get really mad at me, go and bad at me, just making me feel like say, exactly, I can speak my local vernacular. But because I told my story, people now come to me to write speeches. I get paid to write speeches. I get paid to write content. I publish books. I train. I coach. There's never a day in my life for the last 7 years that I don't have work to do. I don't beg. I don't borrow. I use my story sensibly. I mentor young girls for free. I give back. I work in politics because that's me giving back. But there's so many stories that you overthink. You don't understand that, there's an audience for everything. I was thinking about my mom this week, and I was saying to somebody, a guy who likes me, and he and I were having a conversation. And I was saying to him, I'm so much like my mom. I didn't realize my mom was telling me a story by just being hardworking and giving and caring. I could write a story about that. The things that we have in our gut that we think is nothing, there is a story there, there's a book there, there's content there. Let me say content. If somebody asks you 3 times, Ava, how do you do this? There is time to write a book, a how-to, or there's time to tell a story, or there's time to write content. I want you to hear this. If you hear nothing else I say, if people keep asking you the same thing 3 times, then it's time to look at writing. I'm going to end by saying, Dr. Marcia, you'd have seen in our group, we're launching an anthology. And the reason I'm sharing this, I just got the swags for us and an anthology. We're sharing the story of how we learned stuff in COVID. We are sharing it from a positive side. We're doing an anthology, how resilient we were through COVID. What are the lessons we learned? Something as simple as that. But there's an audience out there who wants to read that. So I'm going to implore all of you. And Dr. Marcia, I jumped in to explain in my own understanding what you meant when you went. So I was holding the sister's space about the higher the monkey climb, the more I'm exposed. That is our local vernacular, okay? It's patois. We love it. And so and so I jumped in because you were gone. I was like, let me explain, because I know she was going to explain to them. But let me end by saying this. I implore you all, and I'm going to keep it real again. Let me just keep it real. Too often I see people in my diary who are saying, I'm struggling because of this, I'm struggling because of that. If you have content, put it in a book. If you have content, go to Eric and say, how do I sell it? If you have content, go to Dr. Marcia. Find somebody, because there is somebody who can package your content for you and help you with the hustle. You can package your content and use the money just to go on holiday. When I started out, I used to say, okay, my JOB, my just over broke, JOB, just over broke, was only helping me to pay the bills. But I wanted to go on holiday. I love to travel, you all. Got a British passport. I love to jump on a plane. And so I started using my book, which was my hustle, to take my children on holiday. Took them to Antigua, took them to France. Yeah. And so now I plan big projects. I just opened a shop, a physical business out of my store. So please, guys, let us cross hands across the continent, across the diaspora. Obi and I have a good partnership. Eni and I have a fantastic partnership. Let us cross hands. I'm open to good partnerships, just let you know. I'm open to good partnerships. But let us cross hands across the continent. And by the way, I've been to Africa, you all. I'm just about to make an order from a chemist in South Africa. I've been to Africa. Love it, love it, love it. Let's cross hands across the continent. Do good partnership. Share our stories and leave our mark. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? As my famous coach would say, Eric Thomas. Have a great day, you all. God bless, love you. And Obi will speak
All right,
today.
Dr. Brown, before
Take
you go, I
care.
have a question for
Bye-bye.
you. Is it okay?
Thank
Is it
you.
A
okay?
question for me.
Yeah.
Can you speak up? I can't
So
hear you.
what you saying was very interesting. All right. So can you hear me now, please?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, my name is Chrissy from Ghana. I'm a digital marketer, and what you were saying
Sing.
really, what you were just
Sing,
saying
my
that.
brother.
Yeah.
Sing.
Oh, Nyamia Dom now. So
See. Yes, go
yeah, I
on.
lost you there. Don't worry. All right. So my question is, it looks like Africa, we have stories, we have what it takes. So how can we package our stories to meet the global audience? How can we overcome the impediments, the disadvantages, and package it well to meet up, challenge the Asians? Because in Ghana now, when you look at our TV stations, it's Filipinos and Indians soap opera that is running through. What can we do as Africans to package our story well to meet the global audience? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think that we first of all need to get over it. This is my view on it's almost like what I spoke about earlier, how I felt inferior and like my stuff wasn't good enough. We have to first of all believe that our content is important. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is my perspective, you also don't go chopping off my neck now. The second thing is that we have to start buying from each other. I had this conversation yesterday. I went to Kingston, Jamaica, to buy some supplies from a Black bulk supplier. And I did that on purpose. And the reason I did that, I'm not discriminating, don't get it wrong. So, first of all, I'm not discriminating at all. But Jamaica is overrun by Chinese at the moment. And Dr. Marcia can back me up. And whether that's good or bad, that's not the debate. And so, if you're not careful, the small high street of Black people's businesses are slowly eroding. So, I made the effort, you all, to go all the way to Kingston to buy from a young Black girl who is selling the stuff that I need, the raw materials, to make the products in my shop. So last night I made soaps, I made candle. I love to make it. That's my therapy. I make cosmetic products as therapy. Okay. So I went there. Now, I said this to say that we have to start, first of all, believing in ourselves, and second of all, buying from each other. And Obi and I have a big conversation to have today, a very big conversation to have today. We have to start buying, we have to understand the black pound is important. Because if we don't, our economies are going to die. So we have to, first of all, we have to understand that, yes, and I'm going to touch a topic that's uncomfortable, but it's reality, so let's face it. I worked in NatWest Victoria, the bank, the Royal Bank of Scotland. I worked there as I worked in the bank in England. And one of the things that used to happen, and Dr. Marcia learned a lot about me today, every time you come something else. And what used to happen is people would come with their African passports, and we would have to take those passports to the back of the room to show the manager to decide if these transactions could be processed. Or we started, suddenly there was a red flag that went off because there was a mistrust of Africans as a whole. General statement. If we were to chisel it down, it might be a little bit more finite, but you all get what I mean. So we have to change the narrative and the imagery of how we are perceived outside of the continent. Because for a long time, I know friends of mine would never, they use platforms to buy services. They wouldn't buy from Africans because they've had bad experiences. So we have to fix our image in the diaspora. We have to buy from each other. We have to learn to trust each other. And we have to recognize that our content is amazing. Idris Elba is in Africa doing a documentary about gold in Ghana. So when people like those are raising the flag, we have to make sure that we stay congruent and not destroy what they're trying to build, like bridges and ladders to enable us to stand on. It's a deeper conversation that needs to be had, but the simplistic answer is we have to start trusting each other, believing in our content, and start buying from each other. And that's what I'm going to say for now. And then at a one-on-one level, you have to have those individualistic conversations that are going to look at how that is done. You know, how do we do it? How do we market? How do we package? How do we tell? Do we need to, somebody's mic is really loud. Do we need to collaborate with others to get across the diaspora? So sometimes we need to find people on the other side who are having visibility. I'm going to just keep it real to then leverage them in order to tell our stories. I tell my clients who pay to play that once you pay to play, you can rinse and repeat. So whatever I put out there, you can hashtag rinse and repeat. So it's a bigger, longer conversation, but I hope that was helpful in a simple way. And I hand over the mic. Thank you guys so much for allowing me the time to speak. I never
The piece of the conversation is really clear. I hang on to the idea that our story can really make way for us in the world, and you are a good testament to that, Dr. Ava. And that is what we need to say to the people. The idea that wherever you are is the local story. Okay, I get that from CNN a couple of years ago. I think her name was Zim Virgin, a journalist at CNN, who was talking, they were talking about international news. Then at the point, she just threw it out there that wherever you are, this is local news. Of course, your local news is also international news because it depends on who is listening to you. Because if you are reporting in London, to you, that cannot be international news because you are in London. You are talking about London. But if somebody in France is listening to London, or somebody in Nigeria is listening to your report in London, that is international, which means that there is no really a special point of reference. You are the reference in that you living somewhere in Congo or in Nigeria or in South Africa need to have a certain sense of confidence that your story is also valid. You see, I was talking just now of a certain man in my place who I've never really had the chance to learn about growing up, even though I was living in a small town as Uromi. I sort of get to know about him here. Do you know what is even more funny about it? As I'm doing a research, because I've been researching this story for a long time, because I have a series of work I need to do on that, I even came to find out that in my land, which is Esan, life had been existing there for more than 3,000 years. Now, this is the kick. In the regular conversation, the people of Esan came out of the Empire of Benin if we date it, that would be like about actually about 1,000 years old, actually less sometime. But now I'm seeing a story saying that in that land where we occupy, people have been living there for more than 3,000 years. Now, how I come to come to see that story was because I was researching, and I found that the guy who did this story was in Moscow. Then, of course, I stopped everything I was doing. Just wired him a message. I said, "Hey, guy, listen, I do podcasting. I interview people. Are you ready to talk about this?" But of course, he told me, well, at the moment, he's not doing that story anymore. So why am I sharing that? I'm sharing that to say that wherever we are, like Erica said, you are sitting in your acre of diamond. But the question is, what are you going to do about it? You can decide not to do anything about it. The world will still go on. Nothing is going to change. But don't complain because some other person are going to come and they are going to leverage that story. And don't complain that they didn't leverage it for your interest because you were there. You see, do I want to provoke us? How many African universities are digging in Egypt to find out about the remains, to write their own version of the Egyptian history? What about ancient Zimbabwe, in Sudan? I'm talking of African scholars, those that will, I understand, you will tell me that it is expensive. I know that it is expensive. But if it's not expensive, if it is cheap, then it's not worth it. We, the one, need to dig up our story and need to profit from it. In our community, we have people who are able to help you to understand how to tell your story and how to leave a legacy behind for other people. Because it is our job to do this work. It is our job. Nobody is coming to do it for us.
I wanted to expand to 2 points. I thank you, Dr. Ava, for explaining the point I wanted to make about the monkey. But I am finding, and I want to again commend Bia Bakar for his point, because I believe that you're doing an excellent job when you teach English and French to your children as a second language, because that is what it is. Your first language is the language you speak. And so I heard Dr. Ava speaking about patois. If that is your first language, that's your first language. And that is something that a lot of people tend to reject when they reach at a certain level in an effort to feel a sense of belonging, to be accepted, to get ahead based on their goals and their agenda. And so I believe that one of the things that can build legacy and life in the African diaspora is to make your children appreciate and love their history. And one of the ways to do it, especially important and lasting, is when you teach children from very young the language, the expressions, the culture, and the habits that you have developed that have framed you and made you who you are and your best self. You can also teach your children their roots. So you're not living, you have not been back there for years. Your children have never been there. What about the artifacts that you have in your homes that claim and define who you are with that reference point? So that's a point I wanted to make. I want to also expand the point that was made in how we promote ourselves in the African diaspora. And the thing is, there is an inherent programming that has been caused by the dislocation and the dispersion of a lot of persons and ancestors, the stereotypes and the misconceptions, the oral traditions that have been hidden, and also the misappropriation of the stories that have inculcated in many Africans a kind of shame.
So
It is
Marcia,
as if it is in the DNA that you are not.
Dr. Marcia, Obi, Obi, I want to come in quickly because I want to talk about.
Hello?
I have a half African son, and I want to talk very quickly about. And I know anybody else who's like in the U.S., Canada, the UK, Germany, and you're also abroad. You can speak to this very quickly. And I want to chime in here because when you live abroad, there is a stereotype. Especially when I lived in England, I remember when I first taught in England, I remember my first classroom, I walked in Jamaica, we would say cucumber, cucumba, cucumba. And I remember the children, they laughed because in England it was said to be cucumbers. And so now I say cucumbers. However, there are lots of people from the diaspora, Jamaica included, who come abroad and they get ashamed of their language because sometimes I want to say it very gently, it's sometimes our mother tongue sometimes prevents us from accessing certain platforms and conversations and how to, for example, in my school, if I spoke patois, it would never make sense. However, at home, my kids spoke it. But there are some of us who are, once we leave our shores, we are embarrassed of our language because it sounds different. I've seen it in London 1,000 times. I've seen it in London 1,000,000 times where Africans and Caribbean people become so embarrassed because we sound different, because our tonality is different, and we are embarrassed. So I really applaud those of us who teach our children to speak the language, who are not ashamed of it. I love when I'm somewhere nowadays and I break into patois and the people don't understand what I'm saying. It is so beautiful. So I agree with Dr. Marcia, but I also want to put that caveat in there that sometimes when you go abroad, we have to know how to do it, when to do it, because sometimes it stereotypes us, it takes away opportunities, sadly. And it's important that we teach it at home so we have it as a tool, not a weapon, but a tool. But sometimes it's not always easy to carry it with you in the outside world when you leave the shores. But it's important. So my children came back to Jamaica every year. It was important for them to understand that and touch their feet on the soil and understand the culture. And when we have it's really great and it's important. But we need to stand up and let them stop making us feel ashamed that our language or our vernacular or tonality is wrong. And that's what we face in countries like Europe.
Well, that argument can actually comfortably be extended even to Africa, not only in the diaspora. I remember a couple of years ago, I interviewed a professor, a linguistic in the US, but he's from Benin, not from Benin inside Nigeria, but Benin Republic. So he was telling me how when he was growing up, of course, during the colonial era, he was beaten for speaking their local language. Now, not only him, when I was going to school too, I'm only a couple of years over 14. In Nigeria, I was beaten too for speaking my local language. What I'm saying here is that there is a system that make us hate ourselves. You see, when Michael Mills was saying that, he wasn't imagining, he was saying what is the real thing. In Africa, in our curriculum, there are disciplines that make us hate ourselves. If you just get education in Africa, whether you are in Nigeria, in any other part of Africa, of course, I'm speaking of Nigeria because that is where I know, and that is all you know, you will lose. Because they will not teach you things that will help you to be proud of who you are. A good example. Why would you need to teach a Nigerian child that Mungo Park discovered River Niger? If the way they teach is that when you are a child, your mind is very malleable. Your mind is plastic, is recessive. It absorbs all the information. You do not have the concept of what is wrong or right. When those information are baked into you, it becomes difficult for you to remove them. This is what many of the religious institutions are doing in selling the idea of savior into you, that you need somebody to save you. This person, of course, we all know, is a white European. Don't you understand where the idea is coming from? It's a big argument, this one. Of course, we can talk about it on another occasion. I think it is very important that we talk also about that. I remember also I was talking to another person, but this time he was coming from the so-called France Afrique. Okay, the French believe that they have a section of Africa that is their own. They call it the Franc Afrique. So they were telling me, this guy was from Cameroon, that all the books that they use in school are coming from France. That should be That should be absurd. That the foreign policy, the designing of the future people that will become Cameroonian, somebody in France is designing it. How can you do that? So that is why I'm saying this is a deep conversation, but we are ready for it. We are ready for it. But for the purpose of this conversation, which is building African diaspora life and legacy, I would like to go to Olatunji before I move to Hadiza, because I think she was having a problem with the connection just now. Olatunji, what would you say about how to use storytelling to build our life and legacy? What steps should we take?
Yeah, this is very interesting. I've been enjoying every bit, of what we have had today. I want to say a very big shout out to everybody who have spoken. Eric, thank you so much. Babaka, it's a pleasure. Dr. Hava, come on. Dr. Marcia, thank you so much. And to other persons who are yet to speak here, Adiza and my friend Okare Shaba, it's really, really, really interesting to be here. I think if today is not happening, today would have been a very empty day in the history of mankind, because it's very important for us to know that troublings of the water like this must happen. You see, I like my grandmother. She was my best friend before she left. She died at 103, and for me, it's always a pride, to talk about the kind of wisdom I got from somebody like that. She would tell us stories. I was explaining. I think it was on my interview with Mr. Obehi. I was telling that there are a lot of stories she told me that I never understood until she died, and I had to sit myself down to begin to, try to unravel and understand what was she saying when she said this, when she said that. And those things have remained timelessly valuable. All right, I've been able to begin to unravel, this is what she meant. At the point she said those things, I do not understand them. All right, but because I was receptive, she said more. I was not like, other children that would just, run around. They're not ready to listen. That was my advantage. And now I have, a wealth of it that some others don't have. And when I talk about them now, they look, hey, guy, where are you coming from? All right. And that's it. Now, how did she make me to sit down to always want to hear these things? All right. What did she do? Let me give you one of those very impressive things that she did. Now she may do it not logically. She may do it without any, consciousness of, this is how I want this person to understand. And she might have even done it, very intentionally. There was a day, there's a food, we call it amala, right? It's yam flour, right? I think I was just 16 or 17, and I had so much of energy, all right? So I was trying to make this thing. You have to boil it, turn it into something very sumptuous. Some of us have the idea. Don't worry. I grew up, in a very proper home. As a young man, I know how to I know how to make some nice soup. I remember I made friend with an elderly man because I was grinding on the stone melon that will be made for soup, right? That day. So this day I was trying to make this amala with all of my strength. She heard the sound of it from the room. I was struggling with it in the kitchen. It was sounding pa, pa, pa. What could be the issue? And she stepped out of the room. She came to the kitchen and she saw my struggle. All my efforts to make this thing smooth was just noisy. The pace was still lumpy and not interesting. Nobody was going to eat it that day if I finished it like that. And she took it from me. She was already old. She started. And I could tell physically that this woman, I'm stronger than her. But what I could not achieve with my strength, she achieved without strength, but a lot of sense. And she told me, this is how to do it. You take it gently. Obviously, I could see that you don't need to put strength. You need to take it with wisdom. And she did it that day. And that was a classic lesson for me. Now, she won my heart. Any story she told me after that time, I'm ready. I don't understand, I would sit to listen. We need the kind of reward system that would allow young people who want to listen more. You see, train up a child the way he will go so that when he grows up, he will not depart from it. When the trainers lack training, it becomes very impossible to train up properly. And you know, most of the things with trainers is that no matter how haphazard you are, you still want to feel that you are better. So in the 0% that you still want to keep 20% to yourself out of the zero when you are trying to dispense out of the 0%. So we need people who are supposed to be custodian of knowledge to truly be custodian of knowledge. And it's not going to be cheap. We don't need people telling lies. We need authenticity. We need stories, genuine. These are the things that can withstand the test of time and remain. That's why I can tell you this today, because it's genuine. All right, it's genuine. I can't just, you can ask me tomorrow now. There are a lot of times that I just do it intentionally. I just clear my chat history on WhatsApp. And I tell my friends, I don't lie to anybody. So I will not need to remember anything I've said before. And we can continue our conversation from there anytime. All right. So it's very important to understand that we need reward systems to create incentives for young ones. This is it. The young child's drug, if it is paracetamol, they have to sweeten it. This is what you need to understand. The paracetamol you will take as an adult, bitter, has to be sweetened for the young one to take. You know why? Because we need to encourage the young one to stay alive. Hey, this thing is not bitter. You just take it. You are going to be fine. Oh, it's not bitter. Oh, it's not bitter. But at every, administration of the drug, we are keeping this young one alive. All right? That's what we are doing. But you see, the adult, you don't need to sweeten the drug for the adult. If you like, die. You now know and have value for life. If you like, go and kill yourself. This thing is bitter, take it the way it's bitter. But because you have been able to understand that, bitter pills also heal. All right, I need to take it. So it happens that way. So the thing is this, one thing that has remained very important to me in my life, I lived with my father in just 11 years of my life. I lost him before I was 11, just few months to 11. And then he taught me so many wonderful things. I never saw their value until he left. And one of the very impressive things that, he taught me was he wrote pedagogy, that word exactly, on a piece of paper, and he put it inside his dictionary. I have the habit of, reading dictionary those days, all right? And I opened dictionary one of those days, and I saw pedagogy written on a piece of paper where it's supposed to be in the dictionary. And I was like, this is emphasis. Why would somebody have written pedagogy and put it where pedagogy is inside the dictionary? And it made a lot of sense to me. And I realized that when we teach, there is a science of teaching that makes whatever we are teaching, that makes the paracetamol to come with, sweetener for the young ones. You see, you can't just get these people to learn. All right. I'm not talking about people that are far away from me. I'm a young person too, right? So you can't get these people to learn without understanding how they do. Without us doing it the way they understand things, we would continue to do good things, but in the wrong way and never achieve the right result. You commonly find a young man wanting to go to the cinema to watch movie. Why not turn this thing to stories? Put them in the cinema. They will meet it there because they are not ready to come and listen to the old man who has lost almost all his teeth, who uses a chewing stick to keep his gum busy. The guy is not looking presentable. He's looking like, hey, what will I do with that man? They don't even have the opportunity to meet such. Culture has made them feel, tradition and society has made them feel that every old person is either a wizard or a witch. And because of that, you have to run away from them. So all of these things, we need to tactically silence them and encourage reward system, incentives for anyone that wants to listen. We need to put this. Don't say if they are not ready to take the bitter pill, they are not ready to take it. No, they will die, and their blood will be on your neck. If you have to sweeten their bitter pills, sweeten the bitter pills. It does not stop the efficiency. It will only allow them to take more of those things, and it will work for them the more. So we need all of these sweeteners. Story times. There are no times, as if there are no moons again. So there are no moonlight stories anywhere. As if moons have disappeared. Moon now, not even moons. As if moon has disappeared. There are no times like that, hey, come, let's tell these stories. People don't want to. Everybody wants to get on the internet, want to see something and all of that. They do not, the business is so much that people don't pay attention to the things that really matter. But whose fault is that going to be? If they didn't do it well for us, we should not complain about it. Let's do it well for them. And that's pedagogy, right? Every trainer must have the sense of good pedagogy, knowing how to teach these things. If you need to pamper to teach, let's do. Because if we don't do, we are going to lose our face. You see, parents are to pay the rent for the children to leave the land. If you don't pay the rent well, they will be thrown out in the cold. And they won't ask who they are. They will ask whose son, whose daughter is this one. So it will come back to the parent. So we need to tactically, intentionally, and every way possible encourage this process. Let us serve it in the kind of meal that they prefer the most, the one that is most interesting. Let it go in movies, let it go in different ways that they will not miss it. And we'll tell them, come on, this story is our story. Don't mind that we have decided to represent it in some fictional, character animation. No matter the technology we are using to represent it, is still our story. And that's very important. Let me yield my mic and then let's hear more interesting things. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Oladiji. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you so much. All right. Hadiza, you were having some problem with, I don't know, maybe with connection. Can you hear me now? If you can, please go ahead and share with us. Balarabe, okay, I think you're still having some challenges there. All right. So we move to Okare Shaba. Please go ahead and share with us.
Thank you very much for what you've been sharing. I came when the other doctor was talking, and she made mention of Black Pound Matters, and I can really relate to it, being in the UK, understanding that our story matters, understanding that, we need to tell our stories, and we don't need to feel like there's a stereotype against us, especially when I relocated, being in diaspora. I told myself that I would not be faced by any racism, any ism, whatever it is. And also, when we look around, she was talking about Black business and investing in or patronizing each other. I actually met Mr. Latunji from, patronizing his book, and buying his book. And we became friends. We started having more conversations and all. And there's something that people say, who lives, who dies, who tells the story? So who tells the story when we are gone? Who will we leave the legacy for? If we look at Black business, even African store in the diaspora is not run by Africans. It's owned by Lebanese and different other tribes, So I would say that our story is very important. The African business is important. And what is life without money? If we don't have money, we can't tell our story. It's the same thing with the current war right now. In Gaza, they are the villain because they are not powerful. If you have power, you'll be right. So when we have the financial, when we have currency, when we are liquid, we'll be able to share our story. And we should not stop sharing that story, regardless of the situation. I think I'll yield the mic on this note.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Okare. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Kwasi, I think it's your turn. Please share with us. You have been there for some time. Thank you for your patience.
I've not spoken. I asked a question, so yeah. All right. So I want to thank all the speakers. They've been wonderful, and I'm only interested in solutions. So from what I've gathered so far, I think from the speakers, I noted some things down. First of all, one of the things that we need to do is to define our purpose, and then I think Dr. Brown talked about content creation, collaboration with other speakers, and I also, as a digital marketer, I want to talk about building our digital presence because now our children are gone. Looking at the songs that they even sing, the Coco Mello, these are all wise things and the names we give to our children. So what we can do to help our next generation is to leverage on social media and digital presence, create a story about your village, create a story about just to leave a legacy, share them. Because I have a younger daughter and I don't know. She likes Coco Mello every day. And I was like, okay, so how can I impact? Because already these songs have already gotten, she's just 2 years and she can sing every song. So how do I impact the value? So what we can do is to leverage this digital presence. We should have creators who will go as low as creating African stories. And even when you look at these African countries now, those of us in those are, that are in diaspora, most of them, apart from the Nigerians, have lost their way of speaking. I met a friend my roommate who went to Canada. Now he speaks like I don't know, but so it's a whole lot of stories that I think that if we could leverage what we have, what we can do now is to everybody must pay attention to what they can do digitally because without that we have no influence. So I yield the mic. I think somebody else also can engage in the other point that was raised. I had a point on storytelling workshop, archives and preservation, engaging the youth that the other speaker just talked about. Promotional events and cultural events are all things that we can do. But my emphasis will be on the digital presence. Have a Facebook, have a TikTok where you tell stories about your home, about what you do. I worked with some Canadians on it, and a Nigerian was the one who was in charge. Could you believe he cancelled almost all the African stories, and we're left with stories that could not resonate with us. So I think we have a long way to. We should take the responsibility of creating the next story for our next generation. Who is living? Who are we? Who are we leaving our legacy to? Otherwise, we'll be lost. Thank you very much.
Th- Thank you so much for that, Kwasi. That is important. Again, that is absolutely important. I think I did make mention of the fact that at least that should be the beginning that we are living in the knowledge economy, which means now what you know can actually become something for you. I think Dr. Ava also did make mention of that. That what you know how to do can actually serve you. If that is the case, I think what we just need to do is to ask this thing that I know how to do, how does it represent me? How does it represent my people? Because I am a part of a community. I need to make money. Of course, we all need money. Nobody can dispute that. But we need to understand that money is not the value. Money is only an exchange of value. If you don't have any value, you are at a danger to yourself. Because if what you are looking for is only money, the next man that is working with a briefcase holding money, you can attack him and take the money. The reason you are not going to do that is because you know value, that it is not the money, but the value. In fact, most people who have made wealth, especially those who have made wealth through creativity, have always been there to help other people to rise because they understand that it is not the money, it is the value. So we must look for a way to understand that what we are doing is going to be adding value to the people, to our people in this case. You can tell a story, for example, of your people. Somebody was making a reference of what is okay. I think that is Kwasi, that is you. That in Ghana, most of the products that are there are coming from other people. Yes, because I think Latuji also did make mention of it. Sometimes we are just giving this little sugar in our mouth. It make us sometimes not thinking that where I need to go beyond it and take action. Okay, okay. Let me explain that. When we are little kids, we are given milk because we are still kids, we are still children, we don't yet understand how to function. But when you are an adult, you don't need to be giving milk on your mouth and maybe giving the little clothes that were sold for you when you were 2 years old. You have grown now. You have now grown. So we should be responsible for the content that is out there, for the content that our people are consuming. This includes the music, this includes the film, this includes the books that we write, this includes the article that we read. But this is not just simply that you are present in it, but also how those information are transmitted. You could see, for example, a lot of African American music, there will be a lot of a kind of a shout on it that please stop promoting violence. For the fact that you are the one in the music is not really the point, but the message that you are bringing out and how does it tally with the people that you are part of? How does it present them? I think that should be the most important thing, is that because another person that is looking for money can actually bring you into the project and then make it appear as if because you are there, that project is for the people. That is not the point. The point is in the totality of the project that is going to be presented, how does it represent the dignity of your people? How does it promote your image? How does it promote the image of the people? How does it promote the legacy? So that the people can look at this story that is being told and they can be proud of themselves. That requires more than just be present. It requires taking up the story and writing it in a way that it can reflect the image of the people you want to represent. I think that is fundamentally important. And of course, there are a lot of people who can show you how to do this and do this well if you don't know how to perfectly do this, because we understand that we all do not have the same capacity. That is why we have different individuals in the community who can show you how to package some of this knowledge, because all this knowledge, they are already there. For example, one of the things that we are doing is that we go to interview an individual. In fact, that is actually how I started here in Italy, in that I just take my small recorder, I go in front of a person who has been here for a number of years, I just begin to feed him a lot of questions. Then I take those interviews, I transcribe it, I make a video out of it, I make a book out of that. If you come to look at it, it's not even as difficult as it might appear. Particularly in today, you can take your phone, just stand it somewhere that is not shaking, then you begin to talk to the person. Do you know that many of our elders have never told their story in a way that we can have it on record for people to see just in the next 100 years from now? Because they are not going to live forever, neither are we. So who is going to put this story down for our children and our children's children? So that in the next 500 years from now, these experiences that we are living can be available for them. This is the legacy we are talking about. How should we do this? It could be as simple as just recording their present and putting it out there on the internet for people to see. Maybe you that is doing this somewhere in Senegal or maybe in Ivory Coast or in Nigeria might not really be the person who is going to take it to the next level. Because you have put it there, another person can take it to the next level, take it and digitize it. Maybe you did a video. The person can turn it into a book. We are in the same story. We are just in a journey, trying to make sure that when the battle comes to you, don't let it remain with you. Pass it on to the next person. That is, you are not supposed to do everything. You can say, I don't know how to talk that much. I don't know how to talk like some other person. It's okay. But do you know how to observe? Like observe and identify what is the difference between A and B? Maybe that is all you have to do. Maybe all you have to do is to write. You see, our story also needs to be written. Maybe what you have to do is to sing. we also need our story to be in music. Maybe you don't know how to sing, you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to write, but can you stitch it together? Like, take a piece of the music, take a piece of the video that you have even seen on the internet. You see, YouTube allow you to do what they call a recreation. Either you take these pieces of information, you recreate it, it becomes new. They will not strike your account. They will not strike up YouTube channel for that because you have recreated, you have reworked it out. You can also do that even though you are lame, even though you cannot walk, even though okay, I don't say you are blind because you need your eyes to be able to see. So nobody is exempted from this. Nobody can say, I cannot do anything. No, you can do something. Only that you need to know, ask yourself, with what you know how to do, with the resources that you have right now, with your capacity, what can you do right now? Then you can from there move up little by little. You will grow up and become better doing what you are doing in preserving our collective history. Because that is what we need to do. Our history or the legacy that we're talking about is a collective ownership. It doesn't belong to a single individual. One time, Dr. Chinua Achebe, one of the best African writers, was being interviewed on CNN, and the journalist was referring to him as the father of African literature. Then Chinua Achebe said to him, well, I am not the father of African literature because nobody is the father of African literature. African literature belongs to the African people. It belongs to all of us. So what I want to mean by that is that let's look at it as a collective ownership where you are supposed to be part of it. It doesn't belong to only Chinua Achebe or Chimamanda Adichie. It doesn't belong to the other guy in Harvard or the other guy in Oxford. It belongs to all of us. If that is the case, what are you going to do? Because you don't need to be in Oxford before you can become a player in preserving this legacy. Because if that is the case, then of course you have all the excuse to say, well, I'm not in Oxford, so I cannot do it. Or maybe like the other guy who is in California. Or maybe you are the other guy who is speaking from Harvard. You can say, well, I didn't go to Harvard University, so I'm not the one who should do it. But do you know what I've discovered? Is that the best people are not ready to do the job. Therefore, the job will be done by those who are ready to do it. I don't know if you are paying attention to that. I've discovered this, both in my research here in Italy and also looking at the job that we are doing in Nigeria. You see, I was telling you that I've never picked up a book to read about my village, right? But that doesn't mean that in my village there are not people that are more intelligent than me, people that are smart, that have more qualification to do this job. But they are not going to do it. Not because they are not good people, because we have different call. All of us have different calling for what we are supposed to do in this world. So I want to thank all of you for being here. And I want us to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, each of us, what can I do to make sure that this story, our legacy, is best represented? Because each of us have a stake in it. It doesn't belong to only me. It doesn't belong to only Olatuji or to Dr. Matia or to Dr. Harvard. No, it belongs to all of us. From where you are, if you can sing, sing it. If you can write, write it. If you can talk, talk it. If you can do, sign language, do sign language to promote African life and legacy. Every one of us have a role to play here. So thank you, every one of you. I really appreciate it. If you want to maybe support us, you can, I don't know, pick up any of the book. There are 5 books from this series. They are available on Amazon, the storytelling series for businesses. Or why not? We have a lot of courses on Aclasses where we are teaching people how to leverage the power of storytelling. If you find any of this important for you, maybe you are in business, you want to know how to leverage storytelling in business, reach out to us. In Aclasses, our companies is predicated on collaboration and co-creation. We are looking for different individuals who can contribute because we know that we do not know all. We know that we cannot do all. So we are working with different people so that when Dr. Ava was saying before, that we need collaboration, that is exactly what it is. We need to work together. You see, the way your eyes are configured, they are only in front of you. They are not in your back. They cannot see what is happening in your back. The only way you can see what is happening in your back is if you borrow the eyes of another person, so that you will see your front, the other person will see your back. That is called collaboration. You see, the way your ear function in relation to where you are going to go is going to be in collaboration with your eyes. You see, your eyes is not doing the same thing as your ear. Neither are those doing the same thing as your mouth. Neither are those doing the same thing as your nose. You cannot simply say that your eyes are the only useful part. What if your legs are cut off? You cannot move. You see, every part of the body is part of the body, and they all need to function as the body. No one of them is irrelevant. So we need to look at Africa, we need to look at ourselves as an entity, as a people, and then look at yourself as the eyes or the ear or the nose or one of the hair. Each of them is relevant. So what can you do? All right, I see somebody joining us. That is Dr. Larry Jones. Please go ahead and share with us.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Obehi Ewanfoh. I like what you're saying and how you meant that every one of us should play a part in making Africa great again. It's a very good thing. It's a nice theory. But you also mentioned something that I think is very important, which is we need to work together. It is not a journey that one person, two people can do on their own. And you also mentioned why those who are intelligent, who can prefer solutions, are not getting involved either in helping to shape the face of Africa. In terms of, let me just give you an example of Nigeria, particularly. Many who are educated, who understand how to run economy, are not interested because the cowboys have taken over. But if we leave them to continue to do what they do, then we will not have a country. So we need to we need to come together to find a way to work together with them, and that is what I think we should do. So I must say that a very small group of committed individuals can change the world. So we need to, on this platform, is one thing I want to commend everyone. For example, I'm in touch with Olatunji Alunge, and I think we need to talk. We haven't been able to speak. I saw and I know what he's doing to create that congregation of people that can come together to change the narratives. So I think with this kind of gathering, that means the world is coming together to change the way we do things. We must get involved. We can't sit on the fence. Nothing will change. Hey, we have a 31-year-old boy or young man in Burkina Faso changing the face of things, and he is doing well. So if we sit and say, of course, don't forget, I must also to say this: miseducation of the Negro. If your pride is Harvard, your pride is Oxford, please go and think again. The education we are getting from those places are not designed to benefit Africa. Until Africa creates its own Oxford, create its own Harvard, we will not get anywhere because being graduated or learn or let's say crowned with a PhD degree from those universities is permanently head damage. That's what PhD is from that particular part of the world. So it's not going to help Africa. So I want us to develop our own PhD that work for us, that work for our own environment. And that is the only way we can move from where we are now to where we want to be. I mean, look at what Chinese are doing. They're buying out Africa. They're buying out Africa. They're paying ministers, senators. Once they pay them, and they can then do whatever they want to do. And that is not the way it should go. So please, we need to get together. We don't need to fight. One thing I would say to you that the East African have done successfully is change their government without shedding blood. If Traore killed the the president of this country before he took over, then he will have committed a crime. He did not kill them. None of them, both in Mali, both in Congo, both in Niger, Burkina Faso, they did not kill their leaders. They only arrested them and told them that you have not done what you are in the office to do, and they want to do it. That will show you how it's done. So that is a clever way. That is Africa that now graduated and mature. Rather than fighting, shouting, screaming, they did not do that. They simply just replaced the government and put themselves in a position, but not just put themselves in a position, they actually are working. The boy has changed the road system, education system in Burkina Faso. Beautiful stuff is going on there. We can do the same thing in Nigeria. We don't have to kill anybody to get into power. So we can do so much. So having this kind of dialogue is one way, and knowing fully well how we can make things happen. I will say it again on this platform. I have an arrangement with Olatunji. We currently have University of Sunderland in Nigeria, who have now established with London Academy Business School, and we are offering courses at a ridiculous price. A degree, UK degree, offered in Nigeria at 3,500, with £1,000, scholarship there, and 6,500 for a master's degree with £1,000 scholarship. That is what you will get 18,000 in the UK, 24 to 36,000 in Harvard. But we're doing the same thing that you get in Nigeria. So those are the ways in which we can educate ourselves and groom ourselves to become independent and educate ourselves in the right way, not the miseducation that we're getting here. And I must say to you, please, if you haven't watched this video from Professor Howard Nicholas, Why They've Underdeveloped Africa, please watch that video. And also watch the other one from John Perkins, the economic hitman. You will understand why our leaders are being killed and why our leaders cannot do anything to help us. And until we come together to understand what Professor Howard Nicholas said in his video that you can watch on YouTube, just Google Professor Howard Nicholas, the underdevelopment of Africa, the real story. So you can see it yourself. So it's not just that we are blaming our leaders, not our leaders. That is a problem. The West is a problem. And until we recognize that and face where the problem is coming from, we will not get away. Every one of us want to travel to Europe, travel to US to go and help them develop their economy, while we're basically emptying our own economy back in Nigeria, back in other African countries. And many people are even dying on the sea to get to the so-called destination. So please, brothers, on this platform and sisters on this platform, let's get together and see that we have what the West need. If we recognize what we have, the West have no leg to stand on. They have no leg to stand on. And until we know who we are and start to respect ourselves, that we don't have to come here to UK and become cleaners, washing dead bodies, that we can make our country better and great. Until that time, we need to think again. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Larry. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is the point. That is the centerpiece of it. And that is in relation to what Eric was saying in the beginning on, that we are actually living in our acres of diamond, but sometimes we just die, never see diamond. Because we believe that the pasture is greener in the other garden. Whereas, can you imagine what Africa will be? I look at Africa as literally the Garden of Eden. It's a paradise. Now, if you go to countries like Switzerland, you will see how undulatedly complicated the topography is. But they manage to boil hole in this mountain and still live. But in Nigeria, you see, in many places, the land is flat. Can you imagine? If, for example, when I'm coming from Uromi, the land is flat. But despite that, we cannot even have good road. Despite the fact that the land is flat, we cannot still have good road. Do you know that the reason why our skin is dark is because of too much heat from the sun? Do you also know that that heat can actually be tapped and it will make sure that there's electricity in Nigeria? But since Independence Day date, people are still in darkness in Nigeria. Those in the position of authority continue to say, oh, they are working, they are working. I don't even understand the grammar they are speaking. I don't even understand what they mean by they are working. The capacity that the Nigeria as a country have as energy, I think is, the last time I checked was about 6,000 megawatt of electricity. That cannot even power a state in Europe. In Italy, for example, where I live, because everything is powered by electricity. How can an economy function like that? You see, we can generate electricity in Nigeria from air, from wind, because we have a lot of wind. We have a lot of wind. If you remember the Moshu wind, the wind that is coming from the Sahara Desert, blowing into, that is the wind that is bringing dust into Nigeria, where you have the hammer time. The wind that is responsible for that can actually be channeled to generate electricity in Nigeria. Then, of course, we have water. Do I need to remind us that we have solar? You see, that is all to say that we are living in our acre of diamond, but we never see diamond. And sometimes, of course, sometimes we also blame other people, which of course they are responsible for. But I think we are also responsible for what is happening to us, for not realizing that we are living in our acres of diamond. Because they need what we have, they are here to get it. But do we need what we have? Are we ready to stand our ground, to use our resources for our own good? You see, it might be offending to most of us if we transport Africa to Switzerland and transport Swiss people to Africa. Okay, Africa, that is exaggerating. If we transport Nigeria to Switzerland and transport Swiss people to Nigeria, do you think something is going to change for Nigeria in Switzerland? Perhaps we will live in beautiful houses for a few years. Very soon, everything will crumble. Because the thing is not just the beautiful houses, it's a system. Do we understand how the system is configured? Can we run the system? Can we really run the system? I think it is, in 2010, I wrote a book that I titled "That Development in Africa, My Hands Are Clean." There's some people were asking me, why do I say my hands are clean? I said, yes, I'm talking to the African people. I want us to take up our responsibility. I know, I am not ignorant of the fact that we have suffered from slavery, colonialism, and the rest of it. But if that is the only racket that we have to justify why we are where we are today, we will never live where we are. We need to prepare ourselves, to defend ourselves, to fight for ourselves, whatever it may take. Let me tell us another thing. Just by reasoning, human reasoning. If Nigeria were to really organize themselves and say they want to defend themselves, of course, many countries in Europe, including the CIA, they will say, oh, they might threaten Bristol and everything. But I can tell you, they are not ready to fight Nigeria, to kill the people of Nigeria because they want to take the Nigerian resources. They cannot do it. Not that they don't have the resources to do it, but they will not do it. It cannot be justified according to how we have evolved today as a human being. That you go to another man's land to kill all the people because you want to take their resources. It's not going to happen. But we are frightening that they will kill or they will kill. No, stand up for yourself. Fight. Some of us will die. Yes. That is the price of freedom. That is how we can decide our fate. Our history is already written in red. That means blood. America did not get freedom by just talking. They get it by force. You see, many of the countries in Africa in the 60s, we say we got independent, but most of the independent were on paper. We didn't decide what we are going to get. We didn't drive out the British and their mafias from Africa. So what then happened is that they managed to infiltrate the system, plant in. There's British are still ruling Nigeria. They are still literally ruling Nigeria until we set ourselves free. But remember, there is a price to be paid for being free. And there is a price to be paid for remaining free. If we're not ready to do that, then okay, we are welcome to the almighty servitude. It will remain like this for thy kingdom come. Nothing will ever change. Tell me, Lade, I don't know. Temilade, did I pronounce the name correctly? It's your turn.
Yes,
Please share with us. We are talking
yes.
about building African diaspora life and legacy with storytelling. What do you have to say about that?
You just a little word I have just to buttress what Dr. Larry have said, that it doesn't have to end with diaspora life. We Africa, we Nigeria, we just have to come together. And I love what you are doing, using your story to tell how far you are, where you are coming from, where you are right now, and where you are going. Just like what Dr. Larry said, that we Nigerians, this platform that you have is a very good platform for us to come together, come to the Western world, to come and learn, to come and, learn their system, their education, just like what you said, that the British are the ones still ruling Nigeria. And it's because they know that definitely if Nigeria as a country is settled, they don't have any avenue for them to to exploit us anymore. And that is why we see it that they make sure that Nigeria is on rest for them to get their own benefits. So just like what Dr. Larry said, we should not allow it to end here. We should come together as Africa. We should come together as Nigerians, we won't fold our hands. If at all of us, we leave Nigeria to come to the Western world, to the US, to the Canada, to Britain, to any part of the world, Nigeria is still our country. Just like what you said. What kind of story are we going to tell our children? Even if they have 30 citizenship, they have 20 passports that they are using apart from Nigeria, their source is still from Africa. Their source is still from Nigeria. So the story we will still tell that story relating to their source from Nigeria or from Africa. So we shouldn't allow it to end here. As we are doing this, using our story to tell, what we have encountered, where we are coming from. I listened to what that other lady, that's a Jamaica lady, said, that she wrote a novel, a mango something. That is a very lovely story, telling what she has passed through in life and where she is right now. So I will employ all of us, that all of us as an Africa, all of us as a Nigerian, we should come together. We should not allow all these people that doesn't know anything, because we have what it takes. We have what it takes. We should not allow them. At the end of the day, there won't be anything like Nigeria. No. We just have to take the horns by the bull. So that is what I have to say. Thank you for giving me the platform.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate what you said. That is highly valuable. That is highly valuable. That is what we are representing here. I thank all of you for your contribution. It has really been very great here. All right, Dr. Marcia, you have had some. The connection was not very good for you. Anyway, you already told me about that. I don't know if you can see here. If you want to say the last thing, then we'll close the room, because of course we have spent 2 hours. Usually we spend 1 hour.
Yeah, I would like to say something quickly. All right. Wow. It's very interesting. I like the destination we have gotten to today, and it's so heartwarming that you only need to think out of the box, and you're going to have a lot of thoughts jamming outside there to see that you are not alone. And there's something that happened at about the time when many African countries had independence. That template, that story, it's a playbook. It's been played over and over again, and this is it. We have to be very wary of repeating these stories. I once told that story here, how it was impossible for the Westerners to get Africans over to Britain and some parts of Europe, through slave trade. At the first attempt, our brothers, our fathers who were taken, by chains, by whatever it is, over to Europe, fought themselves out of that bondage, right? They killed everybody that was on that ship, leaving only the sailors because they could not sail the ship, and asked the sailor, young man, if you need your life, drop us, go to the shore, where we want you to. And that gave birth to the Caribbeans. They didn't get to Europe, they left Africa. They started a new life. But it was not a good business. And the Europe came back. Imagine you handed over your brothers with for bottles, right? You see 40 people going for one empty bottle, transparent bottle, 50 people going for a mirror, and dishes would have some, more numbers. If they give you wristwatch, come on, you must get some hundreds of people. So they came back and they said, this is not good for business. I intentionally want to take you through the memory lane. I'm very emotional now. It's painful, but why I'm telling all the stories because we have not learned our stories. And this is why we are, when you don't learn from history, you repeat history. And it's even more deadly now because it's happening faster than it happened then. They came and they told our brothers that your brothers that you gave to us, we can't get them to Europe because they are too strong. They overpower our men, even with guns. They fight them and win. You must do something. Else, we fire you guys. This business is not good for us. They were calling it business. Getting people for empty bottles to them was business. And our brothers were gullible. They started stuff. There's a river a well in Badagry. That well, they did concussion in the well. There is a tree in Togo, Lomé. They did concussion in those places. That when the people who have been carried and enlisted to go for this trade, they have been gotten and ready to be sold. When they are carried, they take them to the well to drink some water. And when they drink this water, they lose strength and memory. When they lose strength and memory, they are unable to do what they are supposed to do until months through the journey. And when they arrive there, they wake up with chains in their feet, in their hands, padlocks on their lips. Wow, business is good. And that was how it continued. There was a time it happened, and it was like a real cry, like we wanted independence. But this was what was happening. Some people reincarnated from those devilish people who gave out their brothers for bottles, who gave out their relatives for dishes. In their reincarnation, came in form of people who we think wanted independence for us. But what they were only asking for was that, hey, white man, go back to your country. Let's do this thing and get back to you with whatever we do. Some of us felt like these guys are ready to fight for us. They are our Martin Luther King, they are our hero, our Mahatma Gandhi, but they were not. Some of them, deeply seated in them was, let us enslave our people now by ourselves. You have taught us how to do it. Painfully. We still fight today for who shines the most in the competitive spirit. And when they spot that is still inherent in us, we lose out on the fight where we are not supposed to break our rank to be able to bring home our freedom. Every time it is spotted that you want to outshine your brother, the crab spirit, you don't want that one to go, you just feel like, hey, it should be me on the stage, and you don't care. They put that again as a hook to drag us back. We need to drop the walls. We need to lose the differences. We need to go all out as strong people and not sponsoring strong men. We have got no limitation than the ones that we have created for ourselves. When Mr. Obehi was talking about, sunlight, and I wrote something down, and it's painful how we have sunlight on the streets and darkness in the rooms, all because we have refused to take advantage of our advantages, and now we are disadvantaged. This is still happening today. We should not shy away. We should not be carried away by eloquence and different speeches, by black people who have seated in them the illness of still enslaving their own brothers by themselves because they just want to shine. If we still have that, we will not thrive. That is, we are still continually fed from that river, that well of forgetfulness. They come to give us when they are campaigning. We drink from it and we forget everything that has happened to us. These are not white people. They are us. If you have been used as a puppet for a while, and now you have now found that, oh, this is not me. You should change. But every time they identify that we are still very interested selfishly in enslaving our brothers, they will bring bottles for us to trade our brothers. This statics has not changed. Only the models have changed. It's no longer bottles as usual. But you see what is happening now? To travel from Nigeria, for example, to some places in Europe is more expensive to travel from any other place to Europe because they know it's a cow that they must milk. We go there for education. It's a business now that if it's not happening, they cannot sustain their economy. And why is this thing thriving? Because somebody here does not want the education to work, because he gets a commission for everyone who travel out directly or indirectly to get education outside Africa. I'm talking not to the white man. I'm talking to the man of color. What are you doing to want to steal the shine? It will not help us. What are you doing to make yourself feel more important than your brother? You are only killing us the more. You can't take out strong men, strong people. You can only take out strong man. None of us is more than all of us. We need to do these things and we need not to be apologetic about it. Our problems are not the people who have come and left us long time ago. No matter what the systems they have to still control, science taught me that we can also have isolated systems that can be severed from communication with whatever can be the instigator on the external environment, from the external environment. Please, we are not here to continually make this exciting. Like I said, I am not apologetic about getting you angry to do the right thing. We need to do the right things. And it should not come from the point of selling our brothers again for some cheap, empty bottles. There's nothing that can worth it. They are afraid of us coming to maturity and the full realization of our power as a people. How can you explain it? How men will carry cannon on their shoulders when you people drive it with carriage? They carry it on their shoulders and it is loaded and they face their enemies with it. You can't explain that kind of strength in people when they now balance the strength with enough of education and believe in themselves. That's where the problem is. They have done so well to make us not to believe in ourselves. And that's why we are bringing back stories and reviving histories of how men You see, do you know who are gods in our mythologies today? Do you know who are gods in our stories today? They were men who were outstanding enough that we could not allow them die like that. We immortalized them, and some people, it got to their head that, oh, these men, we have to worship them. The god of iron, Ogun in Yoruba, history, was not it was not, it did not fall from heaven. It was a man giving birth to, but he had outstanding strength and power. So much that, he would have been a blacksmith, like one of those men, that were anointed alongside Moses to help him do the work. If that man was to come from Africa, would have called him the god of iron or the god of craftsmanship. These were men who were outstanding. So we have always had the strength. We have always had this belief in ourselves. But something happened along the way. I hate it when I hear people say vernacular. There's nothing like vernacular. It's part of the system to enslave us. Our language is not vernacular. We suffered it while we were in school. You go to school, you are asked to pay money for speaking your language when you refuse to speak the lingua franca, that is English. So we buy biscuits with the money paid by those who want to speak our language. When we share the biscuit in class, we don't give those people from it. That way, we make it very inconvenient and very harsh on the people who want to promote us. These things are happening today. And that's why I'm very, very emotional now and passionate about what I am saying. Please, it's time for us to do what we are supposed to do, the right things we are supposed to do. And to do this, don't look for the shine. We are in a galaxy. We are all stars. We are permitted to shine differently, not in competition to outshine another. They have sold that to us and it's still selling. And that's why you go to church, you go to mosques, you go to whatever to share testimony because you got a visa to travel to a place where will not exist if you are not contributing to it. Come on. We have got power. They told us not to believe in ourselves. And they are still telling us today, and we are by ourselves still telling ourselves that we should not believe in ourselves. That's why a black will not patronize a black, even when he has got more content and quality than the other guy who has just got a different skin color. Please, we are not asking anybody to do this for us. We have to do it by ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves. We must do this. And if my name will not go down as one of those gods in the history of mankind, I will not forget that I've said this. We should not sell ourselves for bottles, for mirrors, for dishes, again in this age and time. If you are not angry enough, please think about it.
Thank you so much, Latuji. Thank you so much. That is a very great conclusion. Yeah, I was asking Dr. Mansi, it appeared that I don't know if you are there. We are just asking for the last contribution from you. Then we will close.
I hear the stories. I read the stories. I talk to people of African descent who are our brothers in the Caribbean. I share with them. I guide and I mentor and I coach some of them. And these stories are powerful expressions of hurt that keeps gradually mounting, because every time we are disunited, every time we are divided, we are lost. And we cannot come together being against ourselves. And I like that point. How do we preserve this is a question I want to leave us with. How do we preserve our cultures, our oral traditions, our stories, whether they are good or bad stories, our experiences? How do we collectively store them, value them, and pass them on to our young people so they acquire and stabilize themselves by using this knowledge as their power for self-awareness, for self-acceptance, for self-reflection, and for emancipation? And how do they develop a love and an appreciation and the proper honor for these stories that frame us and our life legacy? How do we get them to grip and understand that their future, their past, and their present are hinged on the stories, because the stories are our everyday experiences, they are our lives, and they are what make us, frame us, mold us, and they are what will emancipate us. How do we get them? Is where I want to end with those questions.
All right, so the conversation has been about building African diaspora life and legacy with storytelling, and we have here a different valuable contribution from many people, including those who have gone now, because yeah, the room have really overstayed today with an extra 1 hour 23 minutes, because we usually stay here for 1 hour. But yes, we'll be having an impactful conversation, a valuable contribution from different people who wanted to share their experiences, and it had really been very educating. So I really want to thank those that have gone and those that are still remaining. I see Okare Shaba, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, my co-host here, my regular guest, Olatuji, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you for your contribution. And Dr. Matia, of course, I appreciate you. And those in the audience, those who have remained till this time, I say thank you so much for your time. We are here again in 2 weeks' time, because we are here every 40 days. So I look forward to see all of you again, and of course, to hear from you and to learn from you.